welcome to all of our focus group members and to those of you out in the audience. We weren't sure how many we would get, so we put a little more chairs than we needed, but we appreciate you being here tonight. My name is Steve Girardi, and I'm superintendent of the school board for Kawartha Ridge, and I'll be co-facilitating the evening along with Greg Enrolment. He's also superintendent of the school board. We've been charged with organizing the community focus groups. I'd also like to identify the other members of our team. We have the local superintendent, Mr. Joe Tompkins, and we have Denise Severn, Principal of Student Success, and Dean McDonald. He's our Senior Manager of Corporate Services. Dean is right there. And we have Linda Bird, who will be recording the minutes. I'd like to begin by first introducing the Chair of the Board, Kathy Hickman. Welcome, Kathy. And then I'd like to also mention our local trustees in attendance. We have Trustee Clausen over here, and we have Trustee Gilchrist over there as well. I'd like to welcome our other trustees that are in attendance. We have Angela Lloyd, and Shirley Patterson, Trustee Shirley Patterson, and Cindy Dixon. On the next slide, I have a list of our members. They're not all quite here, but those are a list of our members. We have community members. We have a principal from the new principal coming into the school, as well as vice principal. We have principal from our feeder schools, which are George Hamilton, North Hope, Beatrice Strong, Canarson Trail, and I guess Dr. Hawker, which is part of the Portal facility. We also have municipal representatives. We have students, which is really important. So I think we have a good cross-section of folks on this community focus. And our attempt when we put this evening together was to have a focus group so we can have tables, folks talk at our tables, and also we've given you sheets at your chairs that you can also provide information and participate in this as well. This is the third in a series of community focus groups that we've had across our system. They're with schools that are less than 500, and I want to take a moment and be really clear about this. This is not about school closure. We're here to discuss how to best support our low enrollment schools, share enrollment trends with our focus group and those of you in the audience, and gather information for long-term planning. It's the same process we use at our other schools, which include Lakefield, Norwood, Clark is coming up, Canberra is coming up, and as well. So we want to find the best solutions we can to make programming robust and positive for our kids as possible. Tonight is part of a strategic planning process for the board where we engage our student communities to gather their thinking on how to support our students now and in the future. We know that community input is critical in school conversations, and tonight is our opportunity to talk with the Portal community. I'll take you through the agenda. We're beginning with a presentation from Portal Vice Principal Tracy McCarthy. She's going to present tonight because the current principal, Steve Trula, is away on a humanitarian mission in Africa with KPR students. And then Karen McKenzie Russell, our new principal of Portal, is new, so we thought it made sense for Tracy to present tonight. Like I said, at your chairs, you have papers that you in the audience can also write down your thoughts as we work through the evening. After that, we'll have a short presentation on historical and future projections from Dean McDonald, and then from Denise Severn will provide some background on overall system secondary school programming. After that, we'll get to the reason why we're here and why we have our focus groups. We're going to talk about what our vision is for our secondary schools here and what we want for our students. We're going to talk about the strengths of Portal High School. We're going to talk about areas of growth, and we're going to ask you folks and our community members to provide us with next steps that we should consider. And we're gathering all of this information so that we can shape our long-term accommodation planning across the system, and more importantly, provide the best opportunities for our students. I think I've said this already, but our low enrollment schools are those schools with less than 500 students. They have more difficulty meeting often co-curricular extracurricular programs. However, what I'm learning about, and I've heard it here at Fort Hope as well, is that there is quite an opportunity for students in small schools to make teams and be part of teams. And we seem to have a lot of staff who want to take care of that. So I really want to mention that right in front of hearing that school after school after school. I've spoken about the format for the evening. It's a public meeting, but we are a focus group. The focus group will work through a series of questions and ask for their thoughts or consolidate their thinking at their tables. At the same time, those of you in the audience can do the same thing. We have provided the same worksheets around the outside if you want to meet in groups. You don't have to, but it's there for your opportunity. And if you leave here tonight, you have further questions, further comments, this whole process is on our website. Currently, we have the minutes from our Lakeville meeting and our Norwood meeting, and the information will be there from this meeting as well, and the other two. If you have any questions, there's a place that you can go on the website and also provide your thoughts and ask for questions that will be part of this entire process. So, with that, any questions what we're here for this evening before we begin? Okay, then I'll pass it on to Vice Principal Tracy McCarthy, and you can share the good things happening at Fort Hope.
So here at Fort Hope High School, we support the learning of all students in their learning. We care about the whole child, and we provide opportunities and supports in all areas of school life. This is something we're really proud of here. No student is forgotten here at Fort Hope High. In grade 9 and 10, we have a number of compulsory courses and some optional or elective courses that students may take. Compulsory are the ones that they need to take in order to graduate, and optional or electives are those they choose to take to round out their selections. So any of those marked with an asterisk would be courses that are combined. They could be combined by grade. So for example, you could have a grade 11 and 12 drama class, or by levels. So you could have various levels within one grouping. So here's what we have for grade 9 and 10. And grade 11 and 12. So as you can see, we have a lot of optional courses running for our students. There's a lot of choice here currently at Fort Hope High. So we have a number of specialized programs here that we're really proud of. We have learning and life skills classes. We have 4 specialist high skills majors: an environmental, construction, manufacturing, and hospitality. We're really excited about these programs and proud of them because they give students the opportunity for experiential learning, which is really, really important. And we're very excited that we currently have our extended French program, but we're going to be transitioning into a full French immersion program. So we're really excited about that. So our current grade 7 students, when they get to high school, will be in immersion. So at Fort Hope High, we have a variety of ways that we support students, and our belief is that we support them beyond just high school. We want to help them explore their paths. We know who they are as individuals, and we really try hard to timetable for them appropriately. So some of the supports we have in place for our kids are, we do individualized timetabling. We get to know who they are and what they're interested in, and we really try hard to make sure that we do the best we can for them in that area. We offer e-learning courses for students who want to take advantage of learning online. We have alternative education running, and we offer a whole wide range of courses for students using blended learning. So it's a variety of classroom work and computer work. We are exploring video conferencing, where students would take some courses via video, and we have very, very flexible co-op opportunities for kids. So we have a very wide range of athletics, extracurricular and co-curricular activities. As you can see, we have a lot of teams running here. We have a lot of individual and team sports for both boys and for girls. And these are in all seasons. We have sports running. The joy of being at a small school is that students have the opportunity to participate a lot more. If they want to be part of the team, they really have a lot of opportunity here to do that. We have a really dedicated staff who volunteer countless hours to support our students. There are very few things that don't run because of lack of teacher involvement. We've had really successful teams that have done really, really well, and we're really very, very proud of that. And our wrestling team just hosted a tournament here this weekend that had people from different provinces here. So we really, really provide a lot of great things for our kids. We have a variety of extracurricular and co-curricular activities and clubs that encompass the arts and student leadership. So there's really something for everyone here, and we take a lot of pride in that. So one of the defining features of Port Hope High is its belief in social justice issues, for local and globally. And we do work in Africa, which is where our principal is right now. We do a lot of things around the community. So we are involved in the food bank. We have kids that go and help out at churches for community hours. I mean, there's always something going on, and that's something we're really proud of here. So we're proud of our school and what it has to offer, and we're glad you're here today with us. Thank you.
Thanks, Tracy. Next, we have Dean McDonald, and he will provide historical data on numbers in the area of feeder schools as far as student population and what projections are like in the future. So, Dean.
Thanks, Dean. Tonight, what I'll start with is a brief overview of really of what's happening board-wide, and then get into the specifics about Port Hope and the catchment area. The history of our board enrollment over the last 8 years, from 2006 to 2013, our overall enrollment has dropped from about 38,500 to approximately 33,000. And within that, there's a bit of a different story in secondary and elementary. Secondary, our numbers are 25,000, and we're dipped down to about 21,800. But the decline in elementary has leveled off, and so as you'll see with some of the birth information, we're starting to actually get into some slight increases. Conversely, the decline in elementary started a bit later, but it's continuing. So we went from about 13,500 to about 11,100 in terms of head count of students, and as you'll see in a bit, that's going to continue to decline as the smaller elementary classes from earlier years are making their way through high school. One of the key components when you look at enrollment going forward are births, and so this looks at the total number of births within the board's catchment area. And in 1991, there were just under 3,400 births. You can see that in 2001, that dropped to the lowest point so far, just over 2,400. And since that time, they've begun to creep up. They're to about just under 2,900 in 2012. I think one of the key parts for the high school is when you look at the years of 2000, 2001, 2002, those children born in those years are now in high school. So they start to ripple through. Fewer kids were born back then, fewer kids are in high school now. And the source of that data being asked about, it's from the provincial birth registry, it's from the Revenue Canada or Canada Revenue Agency, things like the child tax credit, as well as census data. Then we start to project and looking into the crystal ball where we think board-wide births will go, and they're starting to increase slightly. You can see that by the time we get out to 2024, they're projected to be about 3,100. So they've increased, but they're not back to anywhere near that peak level of 1991. And that pattern, and all of the patterns that I showed before are pretty consistent with many of the boards across the province. So then we try to move into where do we think we're heading. And as you look at over the next 10 years, which is our horizon, we're thinking that our enrollment will increase again from 32,000 up to 35,000. But again, it's a slightly different story, as I mentioned. In secondary, we haven't quite bottomed out, and our 11,000 students are going to drop to a number under 10,000 pictures of, there you go. The pictures of cloudy, it's skipping around. In elementary, we do see that, as I said, the decline has leveled off, and we started to increase slightly. So down the road, we expect to see our elementary numbers increase from just under 22 to around 24,000. And again, these are our projections, and when you're looking out 10 years, there's lots of variables that are included in there, and they're by no means an exact science. How can you project how many births there are going to be really without, you're just looking at trends. And what we tried to do here was we took that same birth chart for all the board and we plotted against it the births in the local high school catchment area. And you can see the pattern doesn't really follow the provincial trend. There was a high point was the same back in 1991. There I think it was 220 births. But as you can see, they're significantly up and down, but overall the line is trending downward. And in our most recent year of data, 2012, births dropped to just around 110. So that's almost half of what they were in 1991. And so again, when you look specifically, as we now segue into Fort Hope data, this certainly has an impact on where we see enrollment going in the future. So for the high schools, in 2000, we looked at a 15-year history. In 2000, the average daily enrollment in the high school was 759 students. As we look to this year, the average daily enrollment is projected to be about 396. So that's a drop of 360 students over that course of time. That's about a 48% drop. And perhaps more importantly, if you look in the last 5 years, from 2009, it was 618, and dropped to 396. We dropped almost a third in size in that 5-year period. The other component that I think is worth looking at, we had a significant drop between 13 and 14 and 14 and 15. And when we look down into the data, there's quite a decrease in the number of grade 9s coming into the school from grade 8, as well as fewer returning students. And Fort Hope has a number of students who are 18 or over. And as we go forward through time, as the curriculum moves to a 4-year curriculum, that extra number of students is going to decrease as well. So unfortunately, there are 2 points that are really restricting what we're looking at as we eventually get to where we think the enrollment will be over the next 10 years. Now this is a pretty busy slide, but this lists all of the elementary schools, and you can see that in 2000 we had 1,698 students in the elementary schools, and as we're here today we have 987. So that's another decrease of about 700 students, and that's about 43%. And over time, over that period of time, some schools have closed, like Dawson Powers and Central Public School. Howard Jordan closed, but Ganaraska opened. And as you look at them, there's a couple of trends I know. The Beecher Strong, which was 378, is down to 268. So that school is probably a fairly significant decrease. And schools like North Hope and George Hamilton are fairly small right now, at a population of 59 and 81. And so, that you look at the bottom number and you see how many students we have in the elementary schools, eventually they're going to make their way into high school. So it's another lower number that is reflected eventually in high schools. So what we did was we looked at the feeder schools, and we have 2 groups here. We have the feeder schools that are K to 6 that move into grade 7 and 8, and then of course Hawkins. So when you look at it, what we've done is listed the schools, and we looked at the size of grade 8 classes. So as an example, in Beecher Strong, the grade 8 students in 2009 sorry? Oh, sorry, grade 6, thank you. You can see that those grade 6 classes were 46. And of those, 44 moved on to Hawkins, a couple, one went to Gummo, and one left. When you look out in 13, 14, even though there's been some different class sizes, there's a larger class size in 13, 14. And there we had 36 of those 41 grade 6 students move into Hawkins in grade 7. But we had 3 leave the system and 2 went to Gummo. But generally speaking, it's a pretty good retention rate of keeping the kids in our schools once they get in the door, and we are strong. When you look at Kawartha Trail over that period, you can see there's a class size of 38, of which 34 moved up to grade 7 in Hawkins, 9, 10, and in 13, 14, a few more left the system. We've got the 42, 36 team here. 4 of them, when I say left the system, didn't go to any KPR school. George Hamilton. Okay. Ventriloquist. So, again, our trail is a combination of, Howard Jordan Central. Thank you. When you look at George Hamilton and Northumberland, you can see the class sizes are quite small. George Hamilton, the current or the 13-14 grade 6 class had 10 kids, of which 4 left the system and 6 came to Hawkins. And Northumberland, with a class of 5, where all of them came to Hawkins. We look at this just as a trend because obviously it's important to get the kids into our system in JK, but also to keep them moving forward through our schools. When we look at the similar situation for Hawkins, the class size in 9-10 was 122, of which 105 of them came to Fort Hope. Out in 13-14, that class size has gradually decreased down to 92, but only 66 of them in 13-14 Fort Hope. And perhaps one of the telling numbers was 21 of them left the system. And that's part of the reason when we looked at the 14-15 numbers in Fort Hope, that the grade 9 class is smaller than we had expected. When you also look at the whole catchment area and what percentage of students at the high school attend Fort Hope, in 2009-10, the whole catchment area, and this is for students only aged 14 to 17 because that's what the catchment data gathers. You can see that we had 804 students, which 68% of them came to Fort Hope. 8% went to other KPR schools, and 24% attended, left our board, or didn't attend our board. When you move forward to 5 years later, that catchment area that was 804 kids is now down to 635, so that's a pretty significant drop in itself. Fort Hope's percentage dropped from 68% to 64, but in terms of real numbers, that's about 141 fewer kids coming to the school in that 5-year period. During that period, the numbers of percentage attending other KPR schools increased from, I think it was 8 to 10%, and where in 09, 24% attended other boards, 26% do now. So it's a bit of a double whammy. There's certainly fewer students in the whole pie, in the whole area, and then we're getting a smaller chunk of the pie. So that's what's been contributing to some of the situations of enrollment at Fort Hope. And the last slide is our attempt to look out over the next 10 years and say, where do we think enrollment is heading? And it's not an exact science. We've taken all of the factors that we've just discussed, the trends, try to apply them. When you look at enrollment going forward, you don't just look at births, you look at migration, you look at development in the area, and you try to factor those in. The reality across the province is, when you build 100 new homes, schools are high schools are only generating about 19 or 20 students because people are having fewer kids. There's all various reasons. A lot of the construction in different areas, and I think you see it a bit here in Fort Hope too, are geared towards adults or retirement communities, and so that doesn't produce students for us. So when we look at all of the schools, Fort Hope High School has an industry-rated capacity right now of 714 new places. We're looking at, this is now in head count, but we're looking at, over time, the enrollment continuing to decline, perhaps to as low as 316 by the time we get out to 23, 24. I think Tracy alluded to the fact that we now have French immersion moving in, and I think it's 2017-18 when grade 9s hit, and it's out into 2020-21 before all grades reality is that there's only so many kids to go around, and so we may have a movement between the English and French program, but there's not a net increase to our high school population unless somehow we start attracting those students who aren't attending our course. And so this might be conservative. I always have this caveat when I talk to people. If I'm 10% wrong, you're probably 340, 350 students. If I'm 25% wrong, we're in the high 300s. But for purposes of your discussions tonight, it's still within that general grouping of what we consider a small secondary school. And just from the perspective that you're going to talk about programs or extracurricular, those are a trend that we believe will continue. When you look at the elementary at the same time, we're projecting that from current numbers of 986, it dropped to about 874. That's about an 11% decrease. Not quite as significant as the numbers we're looking in the high school, but again, it's because of all the other factors I just alluded to. So what Steve and the team wanted me to do was just to provide you this background information to frame your discussions, because we fully expect that we're going to see numbers in this range over the next 5 to 10 years. So that's the background. I'm going to answer any questions if we had any. Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, so we've given you a little background on the school. We provided you with historical numbers of the area and what we see over time. And the next thing we wanted to share with you before we get to our discussions at our table is to give you an idea of how we staff secondary school across the system and in all of our schools. We think that will help provide context for your discussions. So at this time, I'll call on Dean Sutton to come up and have that discussion with your secondary school programming and schedule.
Thanks, Steve. We know that there are a lot of factors that go into creating a healthy environment in secondary school. We know it's important that you have a healthy culture, that there be strong relationships between the staff and the students, that there be extracurricular, co-curricular things going on. But my role really today is to speak to you about programming and staffing for a secondary school. The process really begins around late November when we start building a course calendar and really runs through until late May into June. But we review a timetable over and over and over again across the course of the year. So as administrators or as school staffing team, we work on the timetable regularly throughout the school year. I've been through this process actually in 3 different secondary schools, and while the mechanics of building a timetable is similar from school to school, the end result is very, very different depending on the school that you're in. So I'll walk through it and talk a little bit in generalities. So we create a course calendar in December generally, and then we have that ready to go out to our students for February. Actually, February is when they do the course selection times. And the course calendar will list for students all of the courses that are available in the school that they're attending. There are some common elements in schools, though. In order for a student to get a diploma to graduate from high school, they need to achieve 30 credits. 18 of those are compulsory, so all schools have to offer the compulsory courses, and 12 of them are electives. Some schools offer specific programs like French immersion, we've heard about them, or IB, International Baccalaureate. And some other schools may have a particular focus. It may not be a formal program like French immersion, but it may be a focus on the arts. It may be a focus on technology. It may be a focus on forestry. And as a result, one school may offer courses because it's what their student body likes, that another school does not. So in February, students choose courses for the next year based on what's in the course calendar. And we really put in the course calendar not only the compulsory courses, but the ones that our school or a particular school, their students have shown over time that the students really like to take. So in one school, you may have a packaged course like musical theater, a 2-credit package, and students may select, say, musical theater, and the school next to them will not have that credit package,
may have instead a 2-credit outdoor education or 4-credit outdoor education that students may choose from. All those numbers then at the end of February go into the system or into the board, and from there the board is determined based on the numbers what the school staffing is going to look like. So at a school we will then be told we'll have this many teachers, and each teacher teaches 6 sections, and that determines how many courses or how many classes we can offer over a school year. When we're building the timetable, there are some things to keep in mind. We hear quite often that it would be nice to offer some really small classes with 10 students, or why sometimes we're not able to run a class that has a low subscription that doesn't have a lot of students in it. But what guides and what we have to keep in mind when we build a timetable is that we are governed by the collective agreement. And the collective agreement lays out essentially what the numbers should be in each class. So you can see there's a bit of a difference. In a grade 11 college class, you can have up to 25 students. A university level class can have up to 29. For instance, a grade 9 locally developed class can have up to 14 students. We do have a little bit of play in there, but not a whole lot. Generally, it's about an extra 2 students that can be in each one of those classes. So we really try to keep as close to those numbers as possible, although recognizing that sometimes, just depending on the course and the situation, we do sometimes have some smaller classes, and we do sometimes have some that go over that number. So once we have all that, that's when the real work begins. The school staffing committee will sit down and take a look at their numbers and make some really tough choices. And sometimes we have to decide what is going to run and how many of each course. So we may look at the numbers and say, okay, in that English we need to run 4 of those Englishes or 2 of those Englishes. We may only be able to run in another school 1 of those Englishes. So we look at the numbers and we look at how many we're going to run. But then sometimes we have to talk about what's not going to run. If a class has only had 9 students, which happens, or 13 students selected, we may have to cancel that course. Because if we run a class that small, it means we're going to have to run one extraordinarily big. So sometimes, unfortunately, we do have to cancel courses. And we also start talking about what's going to be combined. So we may have to put some classes together by grade or by level. While often it looks like combining courses is not the way to go, and we really try not to do it as often as we can. Sometimes there are good reasons to do it. And one example is senior level French. In many secondary schools, students may choose to take grade 11 university level French, and students may choose to take grade 12 university level French. In many secondary schools, there's not enough students to have standalone grade 11 and standalone grade 12, so we put them together. We run grade 11 and grade 12 together. And while on the outside that may not look like a great decision, but if we don't do that, then we would be forced to cancel both of those classes and not have a senior French program at all. And it's better for us, in our minds, to combine it than to cancel it. So those are sorts of the things that would drive those decisions. There are also some critical considerations that we go through, and while we know we have to offer compulsory courses, and while some of the decisions are really easy, some of the other decisions that we go through aren't as clear-cut. There are some courses that students need to take just to be successful, what their type of learning is. And one example that comes up is learning strategies. Learning strategies we will offer to grade 9 students who may have a challenge transitioning into high school, and therefore we want to give them the best start that we possibly can, so we offer learning strategies. But we also have to think of those courses. Some of our students are going on to study post-secondary. There may be some specific ones they need to get into the programs they want to get into that are technically not required to graduate, but if we don't offer them, then we're not allowing that student to go on the path that they want to once they graduate from high school. Some good examples of that would be physics, chemistry, some of the senior level maths, and so those we really try to protect within our timetable. And then when we actually get into building a timetable, we have to think about how we're going to balance it. And what that means is we don't want a student coming into grade 9 who's taking their math, their science, and their English all in the first semester. So we try to split it up so it's a little bit balanced for them. We try to have an equal number of grade 9 classes running in periods 1 as 2, 3, and 4 in both semesters. We try to have electives against options. We try to have the university college open, running all at the same time, so that the students can fit into as many places as they can. So it's like a giant Rubik's Cube And then finally, when we get to that, we build the timetable. And the way we actually build a timetable, we use a system that allows us, as we input a course, it will actually tell us, if you put that course in period 1 and semester 1, you're going to have this number of kids actually conflict out of it. So then we try somewhere else, with the goal being of getting as few conflicts as we possibly can. And what a conflict means for a student is that when they have a conflict, they're going to have to choose. I have English in period 2, but I also have construction in period 2. Which is the one I'm going to take? The students have to have English to graduate, so often they may select the English and be unable to get construction. Construction is what kids love lots of times. It keeps them in school, it keeps them engaged. So we really try to put things across the timetable as much as we can that allow them to get the courses they want, but also the courses that they're going to need to get to where they want to go. And finally, if a course is canceled, students are again going to have to choose something else. So sometimes they may move on to their second or even their third choice. So finally, what do timetables look like? They vary really significantly depending on the school. As school becomes smaller, there is less flexibility, there's less for students, and there's less choice. But they do look very different from school to school. And as a result, schools come up with different things to try and maximize the choices that students have. So combining classes is one of them. But we also offer some other things that they may not have been around when we were in school, but e-learning is one of them. At KPR, we offer a number of e-learning classes, and that means that a student can stay in their home school, but they take the course online with the teacher and the students who aren't in that building. Most of our e-learning courses are all our e-learning courses with the exception of a couple are senior level courses, and there's a certain particular type of learning that happens, and so students, for some students it's really positive, for some students it may not be the way that they want to go. Video conferencing is another way that we might offer a course that has a low subscription. So if you only have a few students taking a course in one school, they can connect with students in another school and teachers in another school that will enable them to take that course, even though it isn't technically offered in their particular school. We may look across the system and see who's offering a class that one of our students wants, and therefore we share the student. So a student may go to one school in the morning, and at lunch drive across town and go to another school to get another particular course. That one is always a little bit of a coin toss because timetables don't always match up very well, but schools work together very closely to talk about what some of those key courses are that might be offered that a student could get to another school for. And finally, schools might offer a course every second year. So we know, for instance, senior level Canadian history is often one that we may offer 1 year Canadian history, the next year we offer American history, and we just keep flipping it to try and get students as much right as we possibly can. And with that is a timetable in our program in a nutshell. And I don't know if you have any questions. If not, I'll pass it over to Greg.
Thanks, Denise. Are there any other questions either of Dean around the numbers that he's presented tonight, from anyone in the room, or from Denise, or before we move to this next activity? Because the next part of our night is less of us talking and more of we work. Yes, please go ahead.
Dean, the question is, are we losing kids at the same rate as everyone else?
I think that the answer is probably yes, but within our board it's different from school to school. And so certainly in areas where there is a Catholic high school in the area, that's more of a draw. I think what we're looking at here specifically was it's been a fairly consistent trend because there's just fewer kids in general. But that last year we looked at with Hawkins, numbers dropping, that was a significant change. And so whether that will continue as a trend or for 1 year or something we're certainly watching. So I would suggest that that year was a significant piece for our grade 7, grade 8 and grade 9.
I think there are only 1 or 2 boards in Ontario that have increasing enrollment. Every other board in Ontario has declining enrollment, so there's just different reasons there. And just before we move on, I'd like to introduce two trustees, Diane Lloyd from the Lakefield area has joined us, and our vice chair, Rose Whitney from the Peterborough area has joined us as well.
So the 5 points that we found our reports, our experience in secondary school students were a variety of extracurricular activities, courses that were relevant and interesting to the students, relationships with caring adults both inside and outside the classroom, a positive school environment that maximizes their social interaction, and experiential learning opportunities outside of the traditional school environment. So some of the strengths that we feel that Kawartha High School has already is there's a lot of positive relationships between students and staff, caring and committed staff that are really dedicated to making a good experience for the students. And this is very evident that they're invested by all the extracurricular activities that they currently support at the school right now. Kawartha High School already has a close connection with Dr. Hawkins and has a great program to help students transition from one to the other. There's a lot of staff support for students' interests, as I mentioned. At the high school, there's diversity here in the students. We have exchange students and then other people, other cultures are introduced here, which is great. And we also have a strong social justice belief program, or strong social beliefs here at the school and practices in place. Areas that we feel could use some growth. There's a lot of, but there are course conflicts and scheduling problems that can be difficult for the students. A lot of times they have to choose between 2 things that they like because they can't have both of them. E-learning, we feel like there should be more spots provincially so that more students can participate in the e-learning programs. That will open up opportunities. And we think that if there was something unique here specifically about Kawartha High School that only Kawartha High School offered, that would really help to draw more students and more people here. And then our next steps or suggestions are that more Kawartha High School teachers teach e-learning here at the high school because that creates an e-learning opportunity for students but also keeps a teacher in the building for students to access. We think the potential of video conferencing and linking with other schools and how we can support the people who are video conferencing while they're participating in the video conferencing, teachers, assistants, or someone in the building for them to reach. We also think that the community members should support the school more. The school should let the community know that they need help and the community members need to step up and support the school. And finally, we think that we need to continue to strengthen the relationships that Kawartha High School has with Hawkins and the other schools in the area. Ta-da!
Thank you. Mary's going to speak to the points made at this stage.
Okay, first of all, the first question, some of our strengths, academic and experiential learning, course selection for all levels, producing a wide variety of electives, having a balance of courses in both semesters is really important. Right now we find we're running manufacturing in one semester but not the next, or music in one semester but not the next, that kind of thing. Seeing if there's a way to fix that. Having a strong sense of community here, very inclusive, safe environment. Programs that instill learning skills that meet current career community trends. A variety of extracurriculars. We have a strong sports program here and some non-sports special interest and extracurricular opportunities for students, offering excursions outside. We do a bit of that. We can improve that, but there's lots of exciting things happening. And it's really important to build up strong leadership and support to instill that school spirit. And we do that. We have a very strong student government and a strong link program which develops a lot of leaders. Some of our strengths, smaller class sizes, effective student success success team working with our in-risk students. We meet every week and we discuss students that are at risk, whether it's academically, personally, mental health, all kinds of issues. So that's very exciting here at our school. Academic support for students outside the classroom. We offer math labs, there's English help. Many subject teachers are available to help students. We have a strong link program which helps grade 9s become integrated within the school. And that program runs at a few schools in our ward, but it's been running here at Kawartha High for, I think, 7 or 8 years, and it's a strong program, a lot of fun for our grade 9s. We have good connections with Dr. Hawkins students. This year, for example, we did an anti-bullying program, and grade 8 students from Dr. Hawkins worked with senior students, grade 12 students, and they did a full day of anti-bullying seminars with our feeder schools, and that was Scanrock, Ontario, North Hope, and George Hamilton, and then they came here, and then we're going to do another day where they're going to be just strong, and it was really neat to see the grade 8s working alongside the grade 12s. There's a big commitment here to sports. A lot of staff get involved volunteering. And I'll toot my own horn a little bit. We have a really strong co-op program, which serves a lot of our in-risk students and offers a lot of flexibility in programming. And I see a couple of my feeder school principals nodding their heads because they're wonderful and support a lot of our students. And it's really neat to see students that have a hard time in this building and being in a classroom and be successful in the workplace. And then I think another strength, or we thought another strength, was having 4 SHSMs. And we've got a strong tech program from that standpoint, giving students hands-on learning. Areas of growth, certainly looking ahead to that French immersion program, finding creative ways of offering courses suitable for the community. We are trying to do that now. One way we're doing is offering courses in alternate years and communicating that to students so they know when they can select it. And looking at improving maybe facilities for culinary arts, exploring more courses via video conferencing and using technology to help us in that direction. Some next steps, busing was a big thing that we talked about. East of the ravine, we have a lot of students that are in a catchment area that don't get busing, and it's not safe for them to cross bridges without sidewalks, and it's a big issue. There's some low-income areas where parents can afford to buy bus passes. Our town bus doesn't arrive at 8:30 in the morning, it arrives at 8:40, so students are automatically late unless they come an hour early, which is not fun for anybody. So exploring that east of the ravine, and then even we lose a lot of students to St. Mary's on the west side of town as well. They hop on a bus, whereas they have to walk to Kawartha High School. Exploring changing boundaries is another idea. Why does Newton go to Coburg? And Newtonville is only 15 minutes away. They go to Clark. Advertising is a big one. Looking at how we as a community can promote our school and the great things that we do here, trying to keep our students in the community and talking about what we do well, and then doing a better job of communicating with our feeder schools, not just the 7, 8s and retaining them, but retaining the 5s and 6s to go to Dr. Hawkins and then keep them coming here. You could see from the demographics up there that we are losing them even at the 5-6 level because parents are looking ahead and we're losing them as well.
And move to the next table, and then we.
Sure. Actually, my name's Lynn, and I'm the Vice Principal at Dr. Hawkins, and this is Kira, who's from Student Government at Kawartha High School, and we're going to exemplify the good relationship between the two schools by sharing our presentation. So what do parents want for their students? A lot of it's already been said: positive school environment, programming that meets the needs of all students, help for students with special needs, involvement in the community. We also talked about making sure that the instruction is engaging so that students are enjoying the content as they're learning in class. I'll hand it over for strengths.
So some more strengths would be in the programming, so some courses that are offered. The fundraisers we have that could be in the community and globally. The fact that we have a small town so everyone knows everyone. Our sports, so there's more chance for students to participate.
growth, many have already been said, including publicizing the school focused work to promote Port Hope High School at Hawkins and at the feeder schools. We talked about an area of growth being the fact that the field at Port Hope High School needs upgrading, so some upgrades to facilities. We talked about busing, again that's been said, and we also talked about how it's important for students to feel that their voices are being heard, particularly with course selection in grade 9. So if a student chooses some electives and gets neither of them throughout the grade 9 year, they're feeling like they don't really know what's listening.
So for next steps, we're thinking shared busing, CCI, and PHS for specific programming needs. And for feeder schools to come to Hawkins throughout the year for buddy activities to make the transition better beyond the visit. So we can see that as like pen pals.
Thank you. Thanks to all the table groups for the thought that you put into your work. So what happens with this information from here is we're visiting 5 communities and doing the same activity in each. And then we're collecting this thinking individually. People have filled out the same kind of information individually. We'll also take your individual sheets if you've done that. Because sometimes at a group table, your thoughts might not get to the group sheet, but you might want to share them as well. So we'd like to collect those in the box on the side. And at this point, if there are any other questions, this is a good time to ask them, or thoughts you'd like to share. Perhaps Linda is taking minutes of our meeting as well.
My question is, what are the next steps? I know that you have a couple more focus groups that you're doing. So what are the next steps after the focus group information is gathered?
So this time of year, we've had a new board of trustees elected in the fall, and we'll be doing some strategic planning over the course of the next several months. So this has helped to inform our work in setting strategic planning with the trust, supporting the trustees in that work. So this is information that will help with that. Each spring we also bring forward an accommodation review report to the trustees. So once again, this will be information to inform our work moving forward with schools. Steve, anything you'd like to add around that? Steve handles that process. One second. This is just Steve to bear in mind. This process isn't about closing a school. This is really about us knowing what's important to the community around schooling and ideas you have for schooling. So this is more for strategic planning and thinking efforts. Any other questions? Yeah. So the question is, what are the benefits to the area, given that we have closed a number of schools already and we've acted responsibly? And what does that look like now moving forward?
Well, does the ministry have any direction of funding schools? Like, I know this is a great idea, we've wonderful ideas, but they all cost money. So does the ministry earmark any money for fiscally responsible board? Where we have lost so much and then you're trying to fund a 400-person school.
Yeah, so what it does do is by the board being fiscally responsible, so essentially we're allocated our monies from the ministry based on student enrollment, and so by consolidating, if you're not responsible and consolidated, what ends up happening is that same amount of money potentially can be used can be used a little easier because you're not dividing up for special education between two teachers or guidance between two schools, special education between two schools, and so forth. So there's not extra money to consolidate. Sometimes the ministry, when we consolidate two schools, the ministry will give money, a one-time monies to the system to help in that consolidation of closure of 2 or 3 schools at one time. Which they did with Hawkins. They did that in October with Coba East and Coba West. We got money for that. but we are allocated on a per student basis. So it allows us to use the funds. It's a balance, right? We're trying to balance those funds based on the geography of our school and the location of our school. So we try to balance all those factors. Or I guess the board that we try to do that together.
Any other questions? I'd like to thank Steve. Is there any other points that you want to do? I just want to thank everyone for making the time tonight to stand with us, and I'm sorry about the temperature, but there has been some quality thinking going on, and we appreciate the feedback. And I would say to you, for any other folks who say they wanted to come and didn't make it for whatever reason, they can go on our website and provide input, if anonymous input and ideas they have. Please encourage them to do that. This is all part of our planning process. So thanks again. Have a safe trip.